Today I'm going to showcase a study for 3D printed Braille-encoded intraoral films, as well as some challenges and limitations that may arise if we try to move all these concepts and all the other concepts for pharmaceutical 3D printing in hospital settings. Of course, I'm not going to stay too much and spend the time in this slide because we all know the large array of applications of 3D printing for different types of formulations and different routes of administration. So instead, I'm going to focus more on the identification features that currently exist in medicinal products. As we have all seen, products with different names, colors, shapes, and sizes. But why does it matter? Of course, it matters because identification matters for the patient to receive the proper medication. But maybe we should also consider what happens with the visually impaired patients. We have all seen and touched these elevated little dots on the secondary pharmaceutical packaging, where we can find these Braille identifiers, which have been legislated by a European Commission directive, and it has been obligatory to be placed on pharmaceutical packaging from 2010. However, as we talk about personalized medicines through 3D printing, what exactly is going to happen? We're going to have an infinite number of possible doses and combinations. I'm sorry, I'm just struggling on how to move some windows. Okay. We're going to have an infinite number of possible doses and API combinations, and all of these must be able to, the patients need to be able to identify them. So do we need to enhance the identification elements, to increase, to replace them, or to place them in another position? Of course, the solution is not so far away from the current reality, as we all know that special identifiers can be imprinted directly onto dosage forms through a great number of reported subtractive or multi-step manufacturing techniques. And recently, we have also evidenced the first 3D printing of Braille-encoded dosage units for tabular shapes, where the researchers managed to imprint from 1 to 3 Braille characters, which could help also for a blind person to identify the type of the incorporated drug. However, the other problem was, if we talk for personalized medicine, don't we also mean about personalizing the dosing? So if we personalize the dosing, we should also be able to denote with Braille identifiers the correct dosing for each visually impaired patient. So that's the point where we started focusing on how to design such products by following the Braille dot specifications as mentioned in the ISO 17351, describing the diameter of the dot and the horizontal and vertical spacing between Braille dots. And then we said, okay, what we need now in order to imprint the dose. Of course, we need at least 3 characters in one row, because every number has to start with a number indicator. Without this number indicator, this would be the letter A instead of number 1, so that the blind can understand that it follows a number. So we need at least 2 to 3 characters for the first line, and we also need some more characters to express the units, as for example, milligrams or grams. And that was impossible if we have to follow the ISO 17351 guidelines to be printed onto a tablet. So that's the reason that we thought of why don't we try to make it on the intraoral films so that we have all the available space in a square pattern, so to fit all of this data, and we can of course express what is the individual dosing of the film. What we did was that we 3D printed them with via FDM printing by using two different filaments, one containing ketoprofen as model drug for the drug-loaded compartment of the film, and one more filament, drug-free, for the bright containing backing layer. Then we produced three different types of formulations. Formulation F0, which complied with the ISO specifications for pharmaceutical Braille. The type F1, where, the type F1, where we increased only the dot height, but we kept steady all the other specifications. And type F2, where we increased the overall dimensions of the dose. As you can see here on the left side is the digital design of the three compartments, the bright dots, the baking layer, and the drug-loaded compartment, and this is the assembled design. And here we have two representative images of formulation F0, where the bright dots comply with the ISO document, and formulation F2, where all dimensions of the bright dots are increased. Following, we measured all these parameters and compared them with the original parameters that we set in the digital designs. We saw that all these numbers are in very close agreement with the respective formulations and the set parameters in the digital designs, either for the diameter or the horizontal and vertical distances between bright dots. Now, the next thing that we did was to conduct an in vivo haptic evaluation study by recruiting visually impaired people with the aid of the Center for Education and Rehabilitation for the Blind, which is here in Thessaloniki, Greece. So we tried these three different types of formulations and with two different dosing profiles. So we also have for each type two different Braille identifiers on the intraoral films, and we asked them to rate them considering the readability of the dots. The recorded scores were very good for the first two types. For type F0, which is the ISO guided specifications, and formulation F1, where we only elevated the dot height. Considering formulation F2, where all dimensions were changed, we saw that the score was much lower than the other two formulations. Next, we also had to check what happens with the dot height, because as you mentioned, dot height was not described in my previous table. However, it is described here. But why? We needed to focus on what happens with the dot settling. Dot settling is a very common problem with the current manufacturing of bright dots on pharmaceutical packaging, and occurs after first production and demanding on time. Here, it was not so closely connected with the manufacturing if we had the case of dot settling during time after production. However, we were a bit afraid, I could say, on what would happen after persistent handling of the films by the participants. So we kindly asked them if we can handle them for at least 5 minutes So to measure the dot height and to see if we have any changes, one could say that this could be an experiment that there is no need to involve blind patients in this for determining the dot settling. However, these people have such a different touching feeling, so we can't even simulate the way that they touch the Braille identifiers. So interestingly, the result was that the dot height maintained their initial value even after a minimum period of 5 minutes persistent handling. At the end of the study, we asked the participants an open-ended questions on if this concept that we saw is useful compared to the current situation of pharmaceutical drive on the external packaging. I could say that we were really amazed by their answers because they indicated even cases that we couldn't even imagine that they exist. As for example, the first one is that this concept enhances the user independence, because in classical pharmaceutical Braille on packaging, they have a lot of cases with total loss or complete deformation of the original packaging, so the blind cannot recognize the drug. We were really amazed by receiving the response that that would be very useful for multiphasic treatments where different dosing is required. And they also gave us some representative examples. Whereas we also had some answers on the lower storage required when traveling. Further, we had the specific comment for formulation F2. I should remind you that formulation F2 is the one where all Braille dots dimensions were elevated, and the participants mentioned that answered that this formulation can only be used for education purposes for inexperienced Braille readers. So let's now proceed to this future healthcare environment that we all discuss, where distributed 3D printers will be placed in hospitals, pharmacies, or even patients' homes. Is it really needed? Is it really required? I think that we all, of course, all the people who are currently in this webinar think that yes, it is, because we truly are living drug shortages in 3 out of 4 European hospitals, with a mean resolving duration of approximately 2 months, which inevitably leads to disrupted patient treatments. Many healthcare professionals reported that the primary reasons behind these drug shortages are manufacturing or supply chain problems. So the right question isn't if we really need it. We all know that we need it, but is it actually feasible? Who will process the patient's characteristics? Who will design the optimal dosage unit? And finally, who will 3D print the dosage unit? As the differences between the current situation, the current pharmaceutical manufacturing, and the concept that we describe in future healthcare has some differences. Of course, the common elements are the clinical decision and the first step and the final step, which is the delivery of the dosage unit. But in such healthcare scenarios, we also have we need some extra workforce, someone to enter the parameters, the biophysical features of each patient, which could be either the medical doctor, the pharmacist, the patient, or recently we have seen in some cases in some research articles, the use of artificial intelligence. Someone has to design and optimize the dosage, and of course, someone is needed to manufacture the dosage unit. So what we conceptualized was to prepare something like I could say, a software-like algorithm which can interact with the user. Of course, the reason behind it wasn't only uh, to make it feasible for medical doctors, for patients, and for pharmacists, but also for the 3D printing specialists and someone who prepares the feedstock and someone who has to prepare the digital design, because we are talking for personalized medicine. As I said, we are talking about an infinite number of APIs and an infinite number of potential dosing profiles. So that would be really, really interesting to find a way on how to have an automated digital design to facilitate 3D printing. So as you can see in this video, that was an algorithm that we prepared. Of course, in this case, the program developer should place some parameters, should control some parameters, but at the end, just wait some seconds for the video to proceed. But in the end, when we execute this algorithm, we here have some questions from the program. Please give me the required dose, the units of dosage, and conceptualizing some initial letters that may be the patient's or the healthcare provider's initial letters for the prescription of the drug. As we can see, we take a lot of results, but I will stay on this line here because the algorithm here calculates what are the optimal parameters, the optimal settings of the film, the optimal dimensions of the film, so to fit the required dosage, and at the same time to imprint the Braille identifiers. What I didn't tell you until now was that at the end of this algorithm, there are some commands that automatically export um, a digital design readable format by using in the file format used by the software OpenSCAD, which, as you can easily understand, it's an open source script-based computer-aided design software. So what we got until now is that we just used a MATLAB algorithm to make all the calculations for us and to export the digital design for us. So what we have ready the script and ready the digital design. So after developing this algorithm, we did nothing when we had to change either the initial letters, either the dosage of the film. As you can see here, the program designed with the red color, this is the drug loaded compartment, and with the yellow color, it's the backing layer with the bright dots. So to assess all of these elements and to sum up, I think that what we need to do now in order to proceed to this future healthcare environment is for sure to set the right questions in order to simulate the healthcare environment. Is it really possible for a medical doctor to be there over an instrument to 3D print, to prepare digital designs for each individual patient that may come during the day? Or do we need to distribute specialized workforce? Or do we need to make use of other technologies and communication platforms that can not only facilitate 3D printing, but also to optimize the digital design and to develop some intercommunication transfer of data between the different devices so that we don't need an extended number of workforce. However, I should also mention that after solving all of these problems, we certainly need to explore the pathways for transparent delivery for either the feedstock or the final product to the manufacturing hub or to the patient respectively. And of course, to have as a final aim to make life easier for everyone. Thank you for your attention.